My name is Angela Ramirez, 36 years old, and I never thought I'd be grinning after my mother used a family dinner in our Seattle suburb to pull off a desperate scam for $3.6 million from my account. Her reckless ways always strained us, but this was a new low. At the table, her demands for money got heated. I cut her off cold. Driving home, her frantic call hit. Grandma had a stroke, heart racing. I gave her the account code, rushing back. Grandma was fine, sipping tea with friends. The money gone. But that code, it was a trap I'd set. The next day, the FBI showed up. Mom's face drained as I smirked. She'd walked right into my plan. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, hit subscribe, and stick around to see how I turn the tables on my own family and the jaw-dropping consequences that followed. To understand why I set up that decoy account with trackers, you need to go back to my childhood in a quiet Seattle suburb. My father, James Ramirez, died in a car crash when I was 9, leaving behind a fractured family. He was our rock and accountant who balanced our modest life, while my mother, Deborah Klein, bounced between retail jobs, her impulsive spending already a strain. That night, I overheard something that changed everything. Hidden behind the couch in our cramped living room, I listened as Deborah begged James for money, claiming a fake medical bill from a clinic. Her voice was desperate, his skeptical, but worn down. "We can't keep doing this," he said, exhausted. She swore it was a one-time fix. Hours later, he stormed out, stressed and distracted. He never came home. His car veered off the road, a tragedy tied to that fight. After that, Deborah spiraled. Her reckless choices, lavish purchases, risky bets left us teetering on eviction. My maternal grandmother, Margaret Fowler, stepped in to save me and my sister, Amber Klein. A retired nurse living on a fixed pension, Margaret owned a small ground-floor condo in a leafy Seattle neighborhood. By 11, Amber and I moved in permanently with Deborah's half-hearted consent during one of her fleeting clear moments. Margaret was strict but steady, teaching us the value of planning and hard work. She saw my knack for numbers early, gifting me a budgeting book from her savings when I was 15, sparking my interest in finance. Deborah's visits were erratic. She'd show up flush with cash from some lucky streak, promising vacations we never took, or desperate, begging for help with debts. Margaret shielded us, paying landlords directly when needed, but never giving Deborah cash. School became my escape. I excelled in economics, driven by Margaret's mantra that financial independence meant freedom. At 16, I landed my first job at a local bookstore, saving every penny. Margaret's support got me through. When I showed promise in investment strategies, she scraped together funds for a basic laptop, a game changer for my studies. That effort paid off with a full scholarship to the University of Washington, where I majored in finance with a focus on sustainable investing. I graduated with honors, juggling part-time gigs to avoid debt. Margaret stood proud at my ceremony. Deborah claimed a migraine but later posted pictures from a Portland casino. After college, I joined a small investment firm in Seattle, learning the ropes of wealth management. At 25, I spotted a gap in the market for green technology investments. With $10,000 saved and a small loan from Margaret, I launched Evergreen Wealth Advisors, specializing in ethical portfolios for high-net-worth clients. The irony wasn't lost on me, building a fortune by helping others protect theirs, knowing how Deborah's impulses had torn ours apart. Over 10 years, Evergreen grew from a solo venture to a firm with 120 employees and offices in Seattle and Portland. Last year, industry reports valued it at $150 million, with my personal worth at $10 million. Success reshaped my life, but Deborah remained a constant challenge. Her requests escalated, with my wealth emergency pleas for rent, car repairs, or vague medical costs. I learned early to verify every claim, paying vendors directly, never her. By my late 20s, her lies grew bolder. At 27, she demanded $30,000 for a supposed kidney treatment. I found no record of any doctor visit. At 30, she tried opening credit lines in my name. 2 years ago, she roped Amber into a story about a terminal illness only for me to discover she was dodging creditors. That was when I drew a hard line. I set up a trust for her essentials, rent paid to her landlord, a modest monthly stipend, and counseling covered if she ever sought it. She called it controlling, resenting the restrictions. Our contact dwindled to tense holiday calls and rare visits under Margaret's watch. Margaret, now 80, remained my anchor. I bought her a cozy condo in the same Seattle suburb, visiting twice a month and calling every weekend. She never judged Deborah, her daughter-in-law, but supported my boundaries. Amber, 2 years older, drifted between us, closer to me but tangled in Deborah's chaos, sometimes acting as her reluctant messenger. With my personal life stabilized, I focused on Evergreen's biggest leap, yet a merger with Horizon Innovations, a Portland-based green tech giant. The deal, potentially worth $40 million to me, would secure my team's future and cement my legacy. That merger brought me to Portland for final talks, but the dinner with Deborah and Amber set the stage for what happened next. Their push for money that night wasn't new, but it carried a weight I hadn't anticipated. That dinner at Grandma's condo in our Seattle suburb was supposed to be a rare family moment. My grandmother, Margaret Fowler, had set the table with her usual care. Simple plates, a pot roast, and her favorite chamomile tea cooling nearby. My sister Amber Klein sat across from me, picking at her food, while my mother Deborah Klein fidgeted, her eyes darting. The air felt heavy, like something was brewing. Halfway through, Deborah leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Angela, we need to talk about my allowance. Costs are up, rent, groceries. I can't keep up on what you give me." Her tone carried that familiar edge, the one that always preceded a demand. I set my fork down, keeping my voice even. "Mom, the trust adjusts yearly for inflation. It covers your rent directly plus essentials. That's the deal." Amber shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze, her fingers twisting her napkin. Deborah's face tightened. "It's not enough. You're sitting on millions, Angela. Can't you help your own mother?" The accusation stung, but I'd heard it before. "I've helped plenty," I said, glancing at Margaret, who stayed silent but watchful. "The boundaries are there for a reason." Deborah's eyes flashed, but she dropped it, muttering about fairness. Driving home through the quiet streets, my phone buzzed her number. I pulled over, heart already sinking. "Angela, thank God," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "It's Grandma, she had a stroke. They rushed her to Harborview Medical Center." My stomach dropped. Margaret had complained about headaches lately. A stroke wasn't impossible. "What's her condition?" I pressed, gripping the wheel. "Critical," Deborah wailed. "Internal bleeding, brain pressure. They need a specialist, but Medicare won't cover it fully. The hospital's demanding an $80,000 deposit for surgery, cash or transfer now." My mind raced. Harborview was a top trauma center. They wouldn't delay for payment, would they? But fear took over. Margaret was my rock. "I'll wire it to the hospital." I offered, my voice tight. "No time," Deborah insisted. "The financial office closes in 15 minutes. I'm at your condo now. Amber gave me your backup account details. I just need the code." Amber. My sister knew about my accounts from helping with taxes last year. Had she shared them carelessly? Doubt nod, but Margaret's life was on the line. "Fine," I said. "The code is 927461. Take only what you need and text me confirmation." Deborah stammered thanks, promising updates from the hospital. I floored it to Margaret's condo 20 minutes away. The streets blurred as I replayed Deborah's sobs, her urgency. Something felt off. Her story was too precise, too rehearsed. I pushed the thought aside. If Margaret was in danger, I couldn't hesitate. Pulling into her driveway, I braced for the worst. The condo's lights glowed softly. I knocked, then used my key. Inside, Margaret sat at her dining table, surrounded by her book club friends, laughing over a stack of novels. Ronald Ellis, her neighbor, waved me in. "Angela, join us for tea." My relief hit like a wave, then twisted into dread. Margaret was fine, no stroke, No hospital. Ronald. When did you last see Mom? I asked, keeping my tone casual. This afternoon, he said. She stopped by to borrow a cookbook, said she was meeting someone later. My phone stayed silent. No confirmation text from Deborah. I opened my banking app. Heart pounding. The decoy account rigged with trackers showed an access attempt at $3.6 million initiated minutes ago from my condo. The funds were moving, already headed toward a location near Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Deborah hadn't just lied, she'd planned this. I called Harborview Medical Center, my hands shaking. I'm checking on a patient Margaret Fowler admitted for a stroke today, I told the receptionist. A pause, then her reply. No record of anyone by that name. No stroke admissions matching that description. I tried 2 other hospitals, Swedish Medical, Virginia Mason, same answer. My suspicion hardened into certainty. Deborah's story was a fabrication, and Amber's involvement raised questions. Had my sister been roped in, or was she complicit? I dialed Amber's number, but it went to voicemail. Then I tried Margaret again, stepping outside to keep my voice low. Grandma, are you okay? Really? She laughed, confused. Fit as ever, dear. Why I didn't explain yet, just hung up, my mind racing. The app pinged again, showing the funds now stationary at a motel off the airport's main drag. Deborah was moving fast, likely with someone else thinking she'd hit the jackpot. I grabbed my keys, the weight of her betrayal settling in. Standing in Margaret's driveway, I pulled up the banking app again, my pulse racing. The tracker in my decoy account showed the $3.6 million had stopped moving, locked at a motel near Seattle-Tacoma Airport, just 10 miles away. Deborah thought she'd outsmarted me, but she'd triggered my safeguard system. I jumped back in my car, the Seattle night air cool against my skin, and headed toward the signal. My mind churned. How had Amber gotten involved? Had she knowingly handed Deborah my account details, or was she just another pawn in Mom's scheme? On the drive, I dug into Deborah's recent behavior. Her texts over the past month had been oddly specific, probing my travel plans, asking about my Portland merger meetings, even commenting on my condo's new security system. At the time, I'd brushed it off as small talk, but now it screamed calculation. I pulled up my security logs from home. Cameras showed Deborah visiting twice recently, once when I was there, and once last week claiming to drop off a birthday card. She'd lingered inside for 40 minutes, far too long for a quick errand. What had she been looking for? Then I searched her social media, something I rarely did. A photo from a week ago caught my eye, her smiling at a coffee shop, tagged with a man I didn't recognize. His profile listed him as Patrick Doyle, 52, a financial consultant based in Seattle. A quick cross-check online revealed more: 2 arrests in Oregon for deceptive practices, charges dropped due to lack of evidence, and a string of complaints about shady investment deals. My gut twisted. Patrick was no stranger to scams, and Deborah's desperation made her the perfect mark. My phone vibrated, Amber calling. I hesitated, then answered. Angela, I messed up, she said, her voice shaky. Mom asked for your account details months ago, said it was for emergencies. I gave her the backup account login thinking she'd never use it. She called me tonight, said she was at your place, needed money fast for Grandma. I didn't know it was a lie until I called Margaret. She's fine. Angela, I'm so sorry. Her words hit hard. Amber had been careless, not malicious, but her involvement stung. Where's Mom now? I demanded. She mentioned meeting someone at a motel near the airport, Amber whispered. I think she's planning to leave town. I hung up, my anger flaring. Amber's regret seemed genuine, but it didn't erase her role. The motel loomed ahead, a budget chain with flickering neon signs. The app pinned the funds to room 214, second floor. I parked, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. At the front desk, I approached the clerk, a tired-looking woman named Lisa. I'm surprising my mother for her birthday. I lied smoothly. She checked in today, but I need the room number. Probably under Deborah Klein, or maybe her friend Patrick Doyle. Lisa tapped her keyboard. Mr. Doyle, room 214, she confirmed. Want me to call up? I shook my head. No, it's a surprise. I'll text her when I'm there. In the elevator, I steeled myself. Confronting Deborah was inevitable, but Patrick's presence complicated things. His fraud history suggested he was the brains behind this, using Mom's weaknesses. I'd already alerted my bank's security team, who'd flagged the transaction as suspicious, ready to notify authorities if needed. Outside room 214, muffled voices leaked through the door, a man's low tone, Deborah's sharper pitch. I knocked firmly. The voices cut off. After a moment, the door cracked open, chain still latched. Deborah's face appeared, eyes wide with shock. Angela, what are you doing here? I came back when I heard about Grandma's stroke. I said, my voice calm but edged. Can I come in? She hesitated, glancing behind her. It's not a good time. I'm just changing. I leaned closer. Mom opened the door. We both know Grandma's at her book club right now. Her face paled. The chain rattled and the door swung open. Deborah stood in a sweater, hair disheveled. Behind her, a man with slick gray hair and a pressed jacket, Patrick Doyle, zipped a suitcase. Stacks of cash sat on the desk alongside plane tickets peeking from a folder. Angela, I can explain. Deborah started, her voice trembling. It was an emergency, not what you think. I stepped inside, closing the door. An emergency that needed $3.6 million, I said, pointing to the cash. Or was that for you and Patrick to disappear? Patrick straightened, flashing a practiced smile. You must be Angela, the finance star Deborah brags about. I'm Patrick Doyle. This is a misunderstanding. I ignored his outstretched hand. No misunderstanding. You used a fake story about Grandma to access my account. Deborah's eyes darted to Patrick. It wasn't supposed to go this far, she said. I owed money, bad people. Patrick said this was the only way. My phone buzzed again, Amber texting. I'm at the motel. I told Mom to stop, but she wouldn't listen. I'm so sorry. I glanced at it, my jaw tightening. Amber just texted. She gave you the account details, didn't she? But she says she didn't know you'd go this far. Deborah's shoulders slumped, guilt flashing across her face. She didn't. It was my idea. Patrick helped plan it. Patrick moved toward the desk, casually sliding a magazine over the tickets. This is a family matter, he said smoothly. Maybe I should step out. I blocked his path, holding up my phone with the app's tracker. Stay put. Every dollar you touched is traceable. Did Mom tell you I run a firm that secures wealth? This account was a decoy wired to alert my team. Deborah gasped, her eyes wide. You knew, I nodded. The code I gave you triggered the trackers. I hoped you'd stop at $80,000, but you got greedy. Patrick's charm faded, his eyes narrowing. You're bluffing. No one tracks cash like that. I held his gaze. It's not just cash, it's a digital trail. My bank's already flagged it. Deborah's voice broke. Angela, I didn't want to hurt you. Patrick said it'd be quick, that you wouldn't miss it. Patrick snapped. Deborah, shut up. I stepped closer, my voice low. You used Grandma's life to manipulate me. That's not a mistake, it's a choice. My phone pinged a message from my bank's security team confirming they'd notified the FBI. I kept my eyes on Deborah and Patrick, waiting for the next move. As I stood in that motel room staring down Deborah and Patrick, a sharp knock broke the tension. FBI opened the door, a firm voice called. Deborah froze, her eyes darting to the cash on the desk. Patrick's cool facade cracked, his hands twitching toward the suitcase. I stepped back, my heart steady, and opened the door. 2 agents entered. Susan Rivera, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, led the way, badge gleaming. Deborah Klein, Patrick Doyle, you're under arrest for wire fraud and attempted theft of federally insured funds, she said, her tone clipped. My banking app's tracker had done its job, alerting my security team, who'd looped in the FBI overnight. The $3.6 million wasn't just a number, it crossed state lines, making this a federal case. Patrick lunged for the tickets, but the second agent grabbed his arm. Don't make this worse, he warned. Deborah's knees buckled and she sank onto the bed, her face ashen. Susan motioned to the cash and tickets. "We've got the tracked funds and digital logs from Ms. Ramirez's account. You tripped a sophisticated system." Handcuffs clicked as they secured Patrick, who muttered about his lawyer. Deborah stayed silent, her eyes fixed on me, a mix of fear and shame. Susan turned to me. "Ms. Ramirez will need your statement, but you can have a moment with your mother if you want." I nodded, my throat tight. The agent stepped outside with Patrick, leaving Deborah cuffed, her hands trembling in her lap. I faced her, my voice cold. "Why, Mom? Why lie about Grandma's life?" She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "I was drowning in debt, creditors threatening me, dangerous ones. Patrick said your account was an easy fix that you'd never notice." Her eyes welled up. "I didn't think it'd hurt you this much. Didn't think," I snapped, my anger surging. "You used Grandma's health to manipulate me just like you did with Dad's trust years ago." Her head dropped, tears hitting the motel carpet. "I know I messed up, Angela. I'm sorry, I thought I had no choice." I shook my head unmoved. "You always have a choice. You chose Patrick over me, over Amber, over everything." Her sob caught in her throat, but I felt no softness. The years of lies, fake emergencies, broken promises had built a wall I wasn't ready to tear down. My phone buzzed, Amber again, texting, "I'm outside the motel. I can't believe Mom did this. I'm here if you need me." I glanced at it, my jaw tight. Amber's regret didn't erase her part, but her willingness to show up softened my edge toward her. "Amber's here?" I told Deborah, my tone flat. "She told me everything, how you used her to get my account details." Deborah's eyes widened. "She didn't mean to. She was trying to help me." "Blame me, not her." I held her gaze. "I'm not blaming her. But you. You planned this, Mom. You knew exactly what you were doing." Susan re-entered, her expression professional but kind. "We need to take her now, Ms. Ramirez." I stepped back as they guided Deborah to her feet. She looked at me, her voice breaking. "Angela, I never meant to lose you." I didn't respond. Her words felt hollow too late. As they led her out, Patrick was already in the squad car, his head bowed. Susan handed me her card. "We'll need you at the Seattle field office tomorrow to finalize your statement. The evidence is airtight, tracked funds, security footage from your condo, and their digital trail." Back in my car, I sat for a moment, the motel's neon glow fading behind me. Amber waited nearby, her face pale under the streetlight. "I should have stopped her sooner," she said, her voice small. I nodded, not ready to absolve her, but not shutting her out either. "We'll talk later," I said, starting the engine. The FBI's swift action had closed one chapter, but the weight of Deborah's betrayal lingered, pushing me toward a decision I'd been avoiding for years. 3 weeks after the motel confrontation, I sat in a Seattle courtroom, the air heavy with the hum of fluorescent lights. My mother, Deborah Klein, stood before the judge, her hands cuffed, her usual confidence replaced by a hunched posture. Patrick Doyle, her partner in the scheme, was beside her, his tailored jacket swapped for an orange jumpsuit. Amber, my sister, sat 2 rows behind me, her face drawn but resolute. The public defender had pushed for a plea deal, reduced charges for Deborah if she testified against Patrick. I'd been asked to weigh in as the victim, and my decision was clear. David Phillips, the federal prosecutor, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s, approached me before the hearing. "Ms. Ramirez, we have a strong case," he said, sliding a file across his desk. "Your tracked account security footage from your condo and phone records show Deborah and Patrick planned to access $3.6 million using a fabricated emergency. Patrick's prior fraud cases in Oregon make him the instigator, but your mother was a willing participant. A plea could mean 2 years for her with probation and restitution." I shook my head. "No deal. She knew what she was doing, used my grandmother's life to manipulate me. She needs to face the full consequences." David nodded, his expression neutral. "Understood. Without a plea, she's looking at 5 to 7 years for wire fraud and conspiracy, given the amount involved." I held his gaze. That's what I want. Amber caught my eye from across the room, her nod slight but firm. She'd agreed to testify about giving Deborah my account details, her guilt driving her to cut ties with Mom. It wasn't forgiveness Amber's role still stung, but a shared resolve to stop enabling Deborah's lies. The judge called the session to order. David laid out the evidence, my app's tracking data showing the funds' movement to the motel, security footage of Deborah and Patrick entering my condo, and my recorded call, capturing her fake sobs about Grandma's stroke. Patrick's lawyer tried to pin it all on Deborah, claiming she coerced him. Deborah's defender argued she was desperate, trapped by debts to dangerous creditors. The judge wasn't swayed. The evidence shows premeditation and intent, he said, his voice steady. Ms. Klein, you exploited familial trust for personal gain. Mr. Doyle, your history suggests a pattern. Deborah's eyes met mine as the verdict came. Deborah Klein, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years probation and full restitution, the judge declared. Patrick got 7 years, his prior record weighing heavily. Deborah's face crumpled, but I felt no pity, only a cold clarity. She'd chosen this path just as she'd chosen to lie about Dad's debts years ago, pushing him to his breaking point. Amber gripped my hand, her voice low. You did the right thing, Angela. She can't keep hurting us. After the sentencing, David pulled me aside. We're also investigating Patrick's ties to a loan shark in Portland, he said. Your mother's testimony could have helped, but her refusal to cooperate sealed her sentence. She'll likely serve at least 4 years before parole, and her debts over $200,000 will follow her. I nodded, unsurprised. Deborah's impulsive choices had always led to dead ends. What about the money, I asked. Recovered in full, he confirmed. Your decoy account worked as designed. Outside the courthouse, Amber and I stood under a gray Seattle sky. I'm done with her, Amber said, her voice breaking but firm. I can't keep waiting for her to change. I squeezed her shoulder. Neither can I. We've given her enough chances. We'd both spent years caught in Deborah's cycle, her lies, her pleas, her promises. This was the line we wouldn't cross again. I drove back to Margaret's condo that evening, needing her quiet strength. She listened as I recounted the verdict, her eyes sad but unsurprised. You protected yourself, Angela, she said, pouring tea. Sometimes that's all you can do. Her words settled over me, a reminder of the boundaries I'd fought to maintain. Deborah's sentence wasn't just punishment, it was a chance for me and Amber to break free. 5 months after the courtroom verdict, I stood in my Seattle office watching the city's skyline as I signed the final merger papers with Horizon Innovations. Victoria Hale, their CEO, shook my hand, her smile warm. Angela, this deal's a win for both of us. $40 million for you, and your team's green investment strategies stay intact. The merger, delayed by the chaos of Deborah's scheme, had come together smoothly, securing my employees' futures and boosting Evergreen Wealth Advisors' reach. My personal share pushed my net worth past $15 million, but the victory felt hollow against the fractured family I'd left behind. Back in my Seattle suburb condo, I focused on rebuilding what mattered. Margaret, my grandmother, remained my anchor. I'd upgraded her condo's security system, adding cameras and a panic button, ensuring she felt safe after Deborah's betrayal. We met weekly for tea, her book club stories a quiet comfort. You did what you had to, she told me one evening, her voice steady. You protected your heart, Angela. That's strength. Her words grounded me, a reminder that family could mean chosen bonds, not just blood. Amber and I grew closer, our shared decision to cut ties with Deborah forging a new trust. She'd moved to a small apartment near me, taking a job as a paralegal to rebuild her life. Over coffee one morning, she admitted, I spent years hoping Mom would change, but her choices showed me who she really is. I nodded, my own resolve mirrored in her eyes. We gave her every chance, I said. Now we choose ourselves. Amber squeezed my hand, a silent pact to move forward together. Deborah's absence was permanent, Her 5-year sentence in federal prison, coupled with over $200,000 in unpaid debts, ensured she'd face years of consequences even after release. I hadn't visited or called, not out of anger, but clarity. Her lies, from faking Dad's debts in my childhood to using Grandma's health to access my funds, had broken any hope of reconciliation. The trust fund I'd set up for her years ago was dissolved, its assets redirected to support Margaret's care and local charities for financial literacy. I felt no guilt. Boundaries weren't punishment, they were freedom. Professionally, I leaned into new challenges. The merger let me step back from daily operations at Evergreen, taking on a strategic role to mentor young women in finance. I launched a scholarship program in Margaret's name-funding college for kids from unstable homes like mine had been. It wasn't about erasing the past, but building something better from it. Outside work, I found balance joining a hiking group in Seattle's nearby trails, even adopting a rescue cat named Sage, whose quiet company eased the weight of long days. Reflecting on that fateful dinner, I saw how Deborah's attempt to take $3.6 million had forced me to face the truth. Her betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was the culmination of decades of manipulation, echoing the lies that broke Dad. But it also gave me clarity. Trust, I learned, must be earned through actions, not promises. Boundaries aren't walls, they're lifelines protecting what matters most. Cutting ties with Deborah didn't mean I stopped loving her. It meant I loved myself enough to walk away. For anyone watching struggling with family who hurt more than they heal, know this: you can choose your own path. Setting limits doesn't make you cold, it makes you whole. Share your story below. Have you had to draw a line to protect yourself? What did it teach you? The journey isn't easy, but it's worth it. My family may have shattered, but I found strength in the pieces, and so can you.